All right, we are starting the recording. We are now streaming. How many people have come in? All right, should we set up the webcam, or do you want it, or do you want this to just be? Do you want our camera to just be a black void?
I don't know. It's like bird box.
Bird box. See, this is the experience we had while walking to DBH 14112. We had to blindfold ourselves. All right, do we actually, okay, legit, do we want to set up this webcam because it's going to capture everyone in here? That is true. Oh wait, there's also a cover on it. This is not dude, there's no point having a webcam if it's going to be covered up by the boom light. Yeah. That's usually where it plays.
Yeah.
Sorry, the cable here was blocking everything.
Oh wait.
What the? It doesn't reach.
Oh wait, let me see. Okay, that's fine. Just lay it on the speaker.
Yes.
Yeah, that should be good. I don't know if I want to.
Okay.
Leave at the camera.
What is this? Wait, come here. You're not in frame. You're not in frame. Yeah, now you're there. Exactly. That's what I remember. Yeah.
It sounds fun, but is it really fun?
It's an airstrip.
Probably not. There's a reason why we do not blindfold ourselves. All right. It is 2:05. I think that's 5 minutes enough for everyone to come in. All right. So we're going to be starting the workshop now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Writing Workshop Week 1's workshop. Today, we're going to be showing you an intro to game writing. So like I said, welcome to the first writing workshop. My name is Brian Kim. I am the writing director of VGDC's writing department. Those three are our writing officers. There's Jacqueline, there's Charlie, and there's Noel. Anyway, so this is just a short summary. So we're going to be kind of introducing the topic of writing in games. We're going to explain a few of the intricacies in game writing, and at the end, we'll explain a little bit about about ourselves. So, what is game writing? Well, game writing is writing in games.
That's crazy.
You can see he's a gamer because he has a controller on his.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but seriously, what do game writers actually do? What are we supposed to be doing? Well, the truth is game writing is just a very broad topic. There's a lot of things that game writers are expected to do. The two most common things that we will be doing, though, is narrative design, and writing. Narrative design includes stuff like character creation, world building, story plotting, basically the stuff that gets planned and done before we actually move on to the writing process, where it is, well, it's writing. We put ideas to text. So stuff like so we will be writing stuff like dialogue, quest text, flavor text, tooltips, and other UI text. You might not know what flavor text means yet, but we will get into it as the quarters go on. Obviously, this is not all of everything that we do here in writing. These are just like the two most common things we'll be expected to do. So how many of you guys here have like written stuff like short stories or like maybe tried to write a novel before? All right, quite a fair few of you. So you might be wondering what the difference between that kind of writing and like writing for games would entail. So there's a very few amount of differences. For novel writing, usually if you're the author, you're the only person actually writing the darn thing. You are doing all the planning and all the writing by yourself. And other than like a deadline imposed on you by either yourself or like a publisher, you can kind of do what you want as long as it meets some sort of requirements. Now, obviously, that is a huge generalization. Traditional writing and like publishing is a lot more complicated than that, but these are generally what you're expected to do with when you're like writing your own novel. Game writing is very different. I know I said very few, I meant very different. So the thing about game writing is you're basically working in an industry. So most likely, when you join a project, you are not going to be the only writer on the team. You're going to have to work with other writers who have also been hired, and you'll have to not only design a narrative with them, you also have to try and write with them and like work together to create a consistent narrative, a consistent tone, consistent atmosphere, just all kinds of consistencies. Another big difference is when the writers decide to write something, it impacts a lot more. It impacts the other departments a lot more than you probably realize. So, like for example, let's say we are working on a game, right? And we decide that a dungeon is very important to the narrative of the game, and it needs to be added. Just to give one example of what that would entail for people, the art department would now have to create a whole bunch of assets, if the assets aren't already there already, in order to create this dungeon. The gameplay designers are gonna have to figure out how this dungeon is gonna fit within the gameplay of the game. The programmers are gonna have to add that in and code everything to make sure that like everything's up to spec. It's just a lot of work that needs to be done in order to add a single dungeon to a game. And that's not considering all the other stuff that needs to be added for the narrative. So when you write something, you have to be kind of considerate of what adding that into the story will entail, which is why I added the third point right here. Game writing is often a matter of compromise. It is often a balancing act between knowing what your narrative absolutely needs for it to make sense and what you can kind of cut off in order to save time, money, and hours. Why did I say time? It's the same thing. Leading into this is scope. If you guys don't know what scope is, it's basically the perceived size and scale of the game, and that usually gets decided near the beginning of the game, and due to various factors. So, for example, let's take Toby Fox, who developed Undertale and is now developing Deltarune, I believe. Yeah. As far as I know, he worked on Undertale by himself, right? Mostly. He had, of course, he had help, but like, it's mostly thought of as like a one-man team, I guess. The scope of Undertale is extremely different from that of Call of Duty, where you have tons of employees working, having to like work together, program together to like create like a game that's like sizable enough to justify a $70 price tag. You can argue that they're not doing a very good job at it, but we're not here to do that. So in order to make sure development goes smoothly, scope has to be decided near like the beginning of the game. There are very few examples where their scope gets out of hand and somehow the game turns out all right. But it's also because of this that scope kind of becomes our enemy when it comes to writing. We often lack the time and the resources to tell the stories we want to, at least like in the very beginning of our careers. We cannot take a small RPG and try and fit a grand scale RPG narrative into the game. That's just not what we can do. So a huge part of being a game writer is trying to figure out how to tell the story as efficiently as possible. This is done in various ways. You can like cut down on text by yourself. You can like go to other departments, see what, and like work together with them in order to tell a story that doesn't exactly need text. Like if you go to the art department, you can work with them to figure out some environmental storytelling, which is going to be something you would be learning in a future workshop. But basically, efficiency is the key of the game. Is the name of the game. You don't want to overbloat your narrative more than is necessary. Like I've like repeated like 3 times. You have to figure out what you need and what you don't need, because not doing that is gonna most likely blow the project out of scope. And you do not want to do this. It will pretty much make everyone hate you and you will end up hating yourself. Trust me, this is a terrible thing to do to yourself. Obviously, if you have more experience in the industry, you can go on and do more ambitious projects, not only because you'll probably like be trusted more by publishers to like pull this off, but you'll have enough experience working with other people and you'll have enough experience working in the industry to be able to pull off these more ambitious projects. These next slides are kind of just like also general tips for when you decide to work on these projects. So space can vary. What do I mean by this? Well, some game genres just have more space for a narrative than other games. For example, the genres on this list: visual novels, RPGs, twine games, hub worlds, and roguelikes. These games, like I guess technically a hub world and a roguelike is not a game by itself, but you know what I mean. These are expected to carry most of the. These games are expected to have like a huge focus on narrative, right? Like if you're reading a visual novel, you would probably expect it to have like a good story, right? Because otherwise, why are you reading it? Same with RPGs. Now, you can argue that it has a little bit less focus on narrative than a visual novel because RPGs gotta have like some sort of gameplay, but they still have a huge amount of focus on narrative. If you're playing an RPG and it has a crappy story, you're probably not gonna enjoy it anyway. So on and so forth. And this leads into my next point. Keep in mind your target audience, because even within the same genre, audiences are going to be expecting different things from different games depending on what you are targeting. For example, these two are fighting games. One of them is Mortal Kombat 1 and the other is Street Fighter 6. People have very different expectations for how these games handle their story. For example, Mortal Kombat 1, people expect at least a good story out of it, right? Right? Starting from MK9, they put a lot of emphasis on their story mode and like the development of like these new characters. So people who go into Mortal Kombat 1 are gonna expect like at least a story that doesn't insult their intelligence. They expect a story that doesn't drive them mad with how many bad things are in it. For Street Fighter 6, this is not, the audience doesn't carry the same expectation. Like, of course, if the story is bad, then people are going to be like, what the heck? But for Street Fighter 6 fans, the narrative isn't like so much a main focus as it is in like Mortal Kombat 1. It's more so just like a really good side dish to have like alongside the main point of the game, which is fighting other people. So, like I said, keep in mind your target audience. Is there anyone?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to interject for a bit.
Yeah.
Street Fighter 6 is definitely more focused on individual like stories with each character rather than an overarching narrative. So of course there is still an emphasis on having good writing, but you also want to understand that it has to be focused on an individual level rather than a whole game level, I guess.
So exactly what Noel said. Street Fighter 6 focuses more on individuals than like a whole overarching story. And like I said, different expectations regarding their narratives. So keep that in mind. And these are just a few other tips that don't have their own slides. Now, they might think this first tip is very obvious considering what I've said already, but you have to collaborate with your team. We, our writing officers, cannot emphasize enough how important it is to collaborate with your team. It will strengthen the narrative of the game when everyone is on the same page about it. So trying to keep your team up to date with what you're writing so that mishaps don't happen and suddenly you have to like, and then suddenly the narrative seems really stupid now. It can also really help you out in the end too, because other departments can actually have some really good ideas about how the narrative of the game should work, not should work, but like could work and how it could like interact with the gameplay. Although we're expected to do the main brunt of the writing, sometimes writers can like get pigeonholed into like what this story should be, and we kind of get stuck on it. So it can be really helpful when someone who isn't like necessarily detached from the story, but like more distanced from it, can like throw in an idea that suddenly like sparks like this chain of events that, and like suddenly the story has somewhere to go. It's like actually really good now. So yeah, working with other departments can not only make sure the narrative is like straight, but can also actually give you new ideas to freshen it up. The second point is to be ready to wear lots of hats. Even though you may be designated as a writer, you might have to dip into other disciplines in order to make sure the narrative works out. For example, you might have to like interact a bit with the designers. You might have to start considering like a little bit of the game's design. When you work with the narrative, you might have to like I said earlier, you might go to the art department and you have to like experiment a bit with how the story is being told throughout like the way the assets are organized and stuff like that. So it can be really helpful to learn other aspects of the industry, such as game design. Yesterday, game design workshop has their workshop from Thursday from 2:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And some of you might have missed that first workshop. But if you want to know about design, it's never too late to attend the workshop, unless you have class during that time, in which case you might actually be too late. So third point is, and maybe the most important of all, be ready to fail and be ready to scrap. This tip is true for any type of writing, whether it is for game writing or regular writing. You need to be able to improvise. You need to be able to let go of ideas that just don't work anymore. First drafts are rarely the best version of the game. And even though the final version of the narrative might also not be the best version of the game, it just needs to be good enough for the game to work. And if the first draft is really crap, you need to be able to let go of that first draft and then like redesign elements of it or just throw it out altogether in order to make the game work. It is a skill that all writers should be able to have, I think. So yeah, be ready to change stuff from the first draft, even if you really like it. So that's near the end of this workshop. We have other workshops coming up this quarter, same time, Friday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. We got character and world documents workshop. We got a workshop on resumes and portfolios coming up pretty soon. We got one on Twine. We have Thanksgiving break. That's not a workshop, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you would be happy anyways. And we also got something special coming up late in the quarter. I don't think anything's been said about it, so I'm gonna assume there's like a implicit NDA going on. But I think it will be a really fun workshop to attend. So look out for that. Of course, these workshops are in no particular order, and these are not all of the workshops coming up. These are just a few select workshops. And now we'll be introducing the officers of this club. You may be wondering why we're. All right, I didn't actually expect people to drum roll. Wait. Ho, is it okay if I cringe at my first draft? Yes, it is okay.
Fine.
That is absolutely fine. The cringe is what will get you to change your narrative, and it will make you better at.
It's bound to happen.
Like Gregory said, of course, as long as said cringe is followed by fixing what made you cringe. Exactly, Mr. Gregory. All right, so you might be wondering why we're doing this so late. I guess not so late, but like why we're doing it in the first place. It's just, I think when we come up here and like talk about these workshops, there's like an implicit sense of authority that we have that kind of that doesn't necessarily like distance ourselves from you guys, but like kind of makes it hard to like feel relaxed, right? Or like or at least like when we eventually start doing activities, it kind of gets like a little uneasy doing them because you might be scared of like messing up and or something like that. But we writing officers are just students, just like you. We're just sharing the stuff that we know about video game writing as a whole. So hopefully knowing more about us will help you relax a lot more if you do come to these workshops more. Anyway, first officer that's going to introduce themselves is Charlie.
Everyone, I'm Charlie. Here's a picture of me that's kind of blocked. This is me when I had better hair and also with red in my hair. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I don't have a ton of like formal writing experience, but I'm always learning and I'm passionate about storytelling and like literally everything that comes with it. Characters, themes, world building, juicy conflict, generational trauma, you name it. Favorite games, Brawl Stars. Don't ask me how many hours I have on it.
How many hours do you have on it? I couldn't know.
1900.
Oh, that was a lot more than when I was.
I've been playing for like 5 years since it came out.
100 hours. I hope you have.
So I peaked top 100 US in the comp mode.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other favorite games, Don't Starve. Just love the survival aspect of it. And also an MMO RPG, Realm with the Mad God. My favorite story-driven games, Spiritfarer, probably my number one. I have to play a lot more story games, but it's just a really beautiful, cozy, like farm sim management game about like ferrying souls to the afterlife. A lot of themes about grief and love and loss. To the Moon, another like really simplistic, beautiful story. It was just like point and click RPG style game. Last of Us 1 and 2, Firewatch, and an underrated story with the COD trilogy, like COD 4, Modern Warfare 2, and Modern Warfare 3. It kind of felt like an action movie with like the campaign, how it worked. Yeah, other interests. I like basketball, both like playing and watching. So feel free to talk to me about that. I like running. Yeah. Also just movies and food. Yeah.
The next officer that will be introducing themselves is Jacqueline.
Oh, hi guys. My name is Jacqueline, but please call me Jackie. So some fun facts about me. I like listening to heavy metal and 1980s rock. Some of my hobbies are reading, writing, crocheting, running, and like playing video games. Like you can see like right here in the corner, I have like a collage of like photos. So this is me. This is me with like, I like doing my makeup. So you'll always see me with like fun makeup looks. Except for today. My favorite band is Motionless in White. My favorite video game is Dead by Daylight, and we're gonna get into that last little later. Okay, so how I started writing. So I've been writing since I was in middle school. I used to like run to the library and use my 30 minutes to like write short stories. And then starting high school, I started to get into narrative games. I love The Last of Us and Detroit Become Human. Basically, like any Quantic Dream game is like so cool. I love it so much. So film and media is also a big inspiration for me outside of video games. And this is where Stranger Things comes in. I love Stranger Things so much. If you want to nerd out about Stranger Things, I'm your girl. Like, come up to me and I will talk and talk and talk about it. I love it so much. Okay, so I also thought I'd give you guys some advice because you know, I had like, I wish I had like advice like when I first started writing. I was kind of very critical to myself. So please be kind to yourself. Allow yourself to grow and like go at your own pace. Like, don't try to replicate like what someone else is doing because we're our own person, right? At the end of the day, this is like our story, our life, our journey, right? So try not to compare yourself to others. It's easier said than done. I'm very hypocritical because I still do this too, but try not to because no writing is perfect. It's just personalized. So like, imagine if like every writer in the world wrote the same way. It's just like the same story repeating over and over, and it gets really boring. So, you know, be original, be yourself, and you know, yeah. But instead of comparing yourself to other writers, try to take inspiration from them. So personally for me, an example I have is I learned how to screenwrite on Tumblr. So just find these resources anywhere you can, whether it's us on the internet, on YouTube, and just, you know, instead of comparing yourself, say, you know what, I'm going to take this and, you know, create my own thing with it. So yeah, so open up that Google document or that Notes app and be kind to yourself and that beautiful brain of yours. Yeah, thank you.
Our next writing officer is Noel.
Alright. Hi guys, name's Noel. Hi, by the way. I'm one of the writing officers, of course. I feel like I don't have to really emphasize that because you guys already know that. Yeah, before we get started on like my advice and whatever, some of my favorite hobbies include biking. You can see there, sometimes I go 30 miles per hour in the dark. Do not do this. This is a bad idea. I'm planning on buying like a headlamp too, just to make sure that I don't, you know, die. I also really enjoy cooking new dishes. I'm a mad chemist, but for food. So if you guys are ever like feeling hungry or you guys have like a dish recommendation, go up to me. I'll be down to cook you something and just, you know, I'll be like a personal chef.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe not right now.
Probably can't.
Probably can't. No. I also really like designing graphics. I don't think this counts as drawing. You guys can correct me on that. I just like focusing on like graphic design and stuff like that. But I'm still pretty new to it, so I'm not really too well versed in it, but any advice is appreciated. Or if you guys need me to just go over like some of your graphics, I'd be really down to. I also like playing video games. It's so cool and original. Yeah. And I'm also getting into boxing right now. Part of the club for that.
Let's go.
Endurance training is it's a nightmare. A lot of running and a lot of like shadow boxing too. It puts you out, but man, it makes you feel good in the end. I got into creative writing fairly recently, about like 3 years ago. Is that really recently? I don't know. It was mostly through like short stories and novelettes. And not gonna lie, I kind of cringe looking back at them, but you know, that's how you become a better writer. My advice for all you new writers out there is to be like really free form with their prose, right? Just don't focus on like trying to have like a rough draft or a structure. Like it's good to just have your written ideas out there and to try to be like really experimental with your writing style and see what you really like. Just don't worry about formatting until like you're getting like really serious into it. That way, you know, you feel confident just spewing ideas out and then just working on like the actual like editing and formatting and stuff like that. Some of my favorite games include Terraria. It's one of my first games I ever got into as a kid. I used to clown in it because I thought I can't believe I did this, but I committed the grave sin of calling it 2D Minecraft. Don't do that. Give it a try, please. And I actually got really into, I still am really into Team Fortress 2. Such a phenomenal game. Robin Walker, I believe. I'm a big fan of his work. And a fairly recent indie game known as Eastward. Very inspired by Earthbound, but the combat is very ARPG or action RPG. So if you really like that, but also really like narrative games, this is a go-to for you guys. And as you can see, before I finish up my introduction, a Christmas tree, because of my name, I guess.
Yeah.
Alright, and now there's me, I guess. So hello, my name is Brian Kim. You might think this picture looks weird, but trust me, I haven't changed a single bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa.
So there's the quote that I put up in week one's general meeting. I just think it's a really cool quote. I think it's there's a character that says it. I didn't list them because I thought it might have been a spoiler. I mean, Fallout New Vegas came out in like 2010. It might not even matter at this point. Like, do people care about spoilers for a 13-year-old game? But I think it just, this quote hits harder when you play through on Honest Hearts. I think it's just, I really like Fallout New Vegas storytelling. I'm gonna introduce what I like. I like video games. If I didn't like video games, it would be really weird if I was here. I also like writing, same thing. If I didn't like writing, why would I be here? I also like film. I like anime. I like comic / manga. Right, look at you. Anyway, I also really like music, especially rock and metal. You can probably tell with my shirt. Yeah. Huge fan of Metallica. I also like extremely sugary drinks and junk food, basically stuff that will get me closer to the grave every time I drink them. I also really like edgy stuff. I didn't list them here. I didn't list this here, but I also really like saying puns. So I might not say them in the writing workshop, but maybe once in a full moon, you'll hear a terrible pun and you will be like, why is this man still alive? So some of my favorite games here are Sleeping Dogs. It was the first game I had ever played. Sleeping Dogs is an interesting game for me because this was when I had a really bad PC. I basically couldn't play anything. The only thing that worked for me was like a PS2, which I never had because I never had like the games for it. And the Xbox 360. I had games for gold, and Sleeping Dogs was available as one of the free games for one of the months. And so I claimed it and I fell in love with the game. It was like my first proper open world game. It was what got me into open world gaming in general. It was just a really fun time for me. Fun fact, I got this game like 3 times. The first time I got it for Games of Gold, like I said. I bought the definitive edition on Xbox One, and then I bought it again for PC, even though my PC at the time couldn't even run it. And I didn't refund it because I was like, you know what? I'm gonna keep this game because eventually I will get a PC that can run this game, and when I do, I will be ready to play it. It's just Sleeping Dogs. It's just like a mix of like fun mechanics, pretty good story, and just a lot of childhood nostalgia for me. another nostalgic game franchise for me is Forza Horizon. Now, Forza Horizon 1 is I, I don't know if Forza Horizon 2 has like a story mode per se. I know 3, 4, and 5 don't really have one. It's just like, oh, you're the superstar of this like huge festival. Get the cars, get all the fucking cars, you know? But like Forza Horizon 1, it was the first Forza Horizon game I played. It has a really simple story, it has a few plot holes as well. But I think Forza Horizon is an example of a game that like knows what it wants to do. It just has a simple story just to help you propel you through like the rivals, and just like it does its job, and it does its job good enough. And I think that is the essence of writing, is being able to write something that's good enough for the game you're working on, and perhaps a little more as well. I also really like the Like a Dragon games. If you haven't heard of this, maybe you've heard of the Yakuza games before. First game I ever played from that franchise was Yakuza 0. And from there, I just fell in love with the franchise. It is basically the only franchise right now that I will like willingly pre-order right now, except Like a Dragon 8, but that's like drama that we don't need to talk about right now. I also really like Gary's Mod, which doesn't have a story. It doesn't really have a goal, but like I said, childhood nostalgia. I played Gary's Mod as a kid, and it just kind of went from there. So how did I get started writing? Well, I actually didn't start with writing per se at first. I first began doodling random crap that I would want to doodle as like a stupid kid. And then I gradually transitioned to writing, getting inspired by games like Call of Duty. I didn't really process it at first when I was a kid, because like mostly the campaign was the only thing I could really play. So for me, it was just like, haha, funny. People shooting each other, funny, fun, very fun. But I think it did influence the way that I started looking at like stories within games. I also played a lot of Flash games. I think one of the most memorable Flash games I ever played was The Game. Have you guys heard of The Game? The Flash game called The Game by Nicky Case. Oh no. Oh no, nobody knows The Game anymore. Sorry. Oh man, that sucks. But anyway, I played a few of Nicky Case's games as a kid. They've stayed with me for a really long time as well. And yeah, I just kind of built up from there. And now I really hope that like in the future, the main thing, I really hope I at least want to get a job in writing. That's what I think my future holds for me. So yeah, so you can see there's Sleeping Dogs here, Forza Horizon, and then a clip from Yakuza 0. What am I doing, man? Sorry. All right, so we're gonna switch. We don't have that much time, I guess, but for people who are here within the game lab and on Zoom, we want to switch the attention to you. How about you? What are your interests? How did you get into writing? You don't have to answer all those questions, but if you want to share, you can share.
Sure.
Yeah.
My name is Adrian. I'm a first year transfer in game design. So technically I'm a third year, but not still first year. I guess my interests, obviously video games. I do like basketball too. Running. And then as far as like favorite games, I think I'd have to go with the Zelda franchise. I mean, just any 3D Zelda, the 2Ds. Some of my favorites like Twilight Princess, Golden, Ocarina of Time, the classics. Even some of like the ones on the DS, like Spirit Tracks. I love those too. But yeah, and then I think another franchise is probably like the Souls games. I just really like games that have bosses and dungeons, I guess. I think that's like my main interest in games. So yeah, that's
Wonderful.
pretty much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, hello, my name is Brendan Patrol. I'm a first year game design major. And like my favorite game, probably like story-wise, would be the Blade series.
Oh, Xenoblade, yeah.
Hey, were you the one telling me to keep playing the audio?
Yeah.
Guys,
It's okay.
on the other hand, that was a bit forced, but we'll go with it.
I'm Jack.
Nice to meet
Nice to meet you too. I like playing video games, making video games, reading, writing, running, and my favorite game is World Ends With You.
Oh, the world ends with you.
Good game.
I heard it's a really good game. I haven't played it, but I'm thinking of maybe trying it out one day. There's like a song from like the sequel, I think.
Yeah, which one?
Breaking Free.
Oh, that one's really good, yeah.
Yeah,
Wait, when did you listen to that one? Like,
it was like
okay.
it was like a long time ago, but I heard it. I think it might have been recommended to me by Spotify, and I was like, oh damn, this is a really good song. I'm gonna add this to my playlist. And yeah, really good song. Have you heard of Breaking Free from Neo, The World Ends With You?
Yeah.
If you haven't heard of Breaking Free from Neo, The World Ends With You, I think it's a really cool song. You should check it out.
So I thought
Wait, Ryan, do we still have time left over?
It is 2:45.
Okay, real quick, any questions for us specifically? Shoot, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was wondering how much, so when you're a writer and there's a team lead, right?
Yeah.
Or the team lead, the person who pitched the project, I imagine they have their own vision of the game they want. How much of a writer do you influence what their vision is? Like, do you change what they want, or do you kind of just write what they're looking to? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Me personally, I haven't had a major writing position for a game in like last winter quarter.
Uh-huh.
But usually the writers have kind of a major say in the pre-production things. But if you get like appointed later on as a writer for a game, like as it's like being produced, you don't really have much of a control in the like direction of it. You might have a chance in rewriting, like maybe like a conclusion for the game or something like that. But usually you kind of have quite a lot of power on the like a narrative of a game early on.
Okay.
That's from my experience. I don't know if you guys have anything else.
Yeah, I'm the writer for a VGDC project right now, and what I can say from this is that yes, you are able to, give ideas, bring your own ideas to the table. So it's very freeing in the sense that and very nice that you can just like let out all your ideas and tell the team leads, right? And not just the team leads, you collaborate with other departments like art department, collaborate with the design department, collaborate with even like programming, right? And you guys all just like find a way to improve upon the story. And that all starts with you, the writer, right? Because you ultimately like know these characters, you're writing for these characters, you're writing the personality for these characters, you're writing the dialogue for these characters. So because of that, you're going to have to work really closely with artists, because if the character looks like emo and you're writing the character all like, whoa, there's gonna be like an obvious, unless it's like on purpose,
Yeah.
there's gonna be an obvious disconnect between art and writing. So that's where you collaborate, and then, art with design, like making sure all the mechanics, like if they have abilities, making sure the abilities align with the personality of the character that you're writing. And then, so that's why I say that like as a writer, especially like your primary writer and it's like a writing heavy game, you have a lot of like creative liberties. So yes, yeah. Sorry.
No, it's just like these, I really have nothing else to add to.
Yeah, it just really depends on the game you're working for. Sometimes you will have a very major say in how the game goes. And then sometimes the gameplay is already figured out, so you have to work around it in order for the game to make sense. So it'll probably be more of the latter in these projects if you're going to join the pitch project in a VGDC, Because these are like smaller scale projects, but you'll definitely run into like games where like narrative is like the big focus. So you'll like have much more of a say in like how the game should go and like how the mechanics interact with the story. I guess you could say if narrative is a major part of the game, the story ends with you. Any other questions?
You said something about Twine, right?
Twine is basically a game engine that is focused very hard on like text-based games. There's like a whole program you can download and like you can, and it's there's a bunch of uses for it other than just making games. You can like use it to plan stuff out and stuff. But like I said, we'll be looking at that in future workshops. So look out for that.
Me too.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, so are the workshops every Friday or is it like every other?
No, every Friday.
Every Friday.
Every Friday, same exact
I
time.
know like the UI is like every other, right?
Maybe we don't. I don't personally know that.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I think I was there for you. I think it is every upper week.
Yes, I was just wondering if Fridays every week.
No,
Yeah,
it's
writing-
every week for us, yeah.
Yeah, ratings every week. The departments kind of handle their workshops in a different manner.
Yeah, excluding holidays like Thanksgiving and stuff.
Yeah, we can't exactly host a workshop on a day where we can't come here. So
Yeah, I mean.
yeah. Any other questions? Maybe in the chat. The chat has no answer.
Alright.
Well, it's 2:50.
Yeah, it is 2:50. It is near the time that you guys have to leave. So we'll be ending this workshop here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming here. Hopefully you had a good time, at least. And yeah, thank you all for attending, and hopefully we'll see more attendance from you guys.
And if you do have any more questions, feel free to send some over in the writing channel in our official Discord. If you don't feel like confident like asking questions right now, we're always open, like you can just send them over there and we'll be free. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's not only gonna be us answering those questions, some other people who are more experienced in that field. Even if they're not like a writing officer, can come in and like answer those questions for you if you need them, if you need them answered. So yeah, if you have any questions, ask them in the writing channel. Someone will definitely come to your aid.
Yeah. All right, thank you. And if you want someone to talk with, I can talk to you guys about your writing projects.
Hey, all right, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, see.